Seemingly every new installment into the Zelda franchise has to walk a precarious tightrope. Each game must be accessible enough for new players to enjoy without being completely lost, and substantial enough for old players to connect to the grander history of the series. While each game is mechanically unique and most of their narratives stand alone, some sequels use their predecessors as springboards to launch the franchise's mythos into uncharted territory. Others remain tethered to their predecessors while expanding on their familiar worlds. But there is one little unassuming game that hovers nebulously over all these descriptors. The Wind Waker is simultaneously traditional while being wholly original, follows old tropes while charting its own course, and dedicates itself to the future while honoring the past. Because of this, it's not just a standalone game, but a secret sequel. So how does it manage to walk that precarious tightrope better than any other installment? The Wind Waker begins with a retelling of Ocarina of Time presented as a legend. For new players, this should present a compelling mystery. It grounds the world they are about to spend hours exploring in a history and tradition. And, as the old heads will know, the legend, history, and tradition are based on the literal in-game truth. For an old head then, this is more than ample evidence that the Wind Waker is deeply tied to an older installment. And not just tangentially or through Easter eggs, but with its very own narrative thread woven into the broader ancestral tapestry. The actual story of Ocarina of Time is important here because it acts as a mirror against which the Wind Waker is reflected. Casually, they are quite similar. A boy clad in green must save the world from destruction, which is generally the narrative foundation of all Zelda games. However, Ocarina is about a chosen orphan who must accept the mantle of hero and thwart the evil that it is his destiny to defeat. Wind Waker is about a sleepy boy on an island thrust into a conflict that was never his to begin with, but one that he accepts anyway to save his sister and ultimately the world he and others call home. Where Ocarina of Time's Link is a hero of destiny, of fate, the Wind Waker's is a hero of circumstance, of accident. As we look within the broader narrative, we see the idea of ancestry and lineage in the finer narrative threads, but we also see change. Hundreds of years after the events of Ocarina of Time, we learn that Link has an actual lineage, a grandma and sister, a family. We learn the tradition of boys coming of age and receiving their green tunic in remembrance of the legendary hero. While Ocarina's Link is in green from the beginning, Wind Waker's is very much hesitant about his role in the tradition. Compare his reaction to the different version of a more traditional chosen hero, and he has a family heirloom hanging on the wall. There is also a lineage of relics. The pearls, the sword, the sages. These things are all the hero of times, but he's gone, vanished. They are now artifacts the hero of winds must assume, a legacy he must uphold in the legendary hero's absence. We even see how time alters the inhabitants of the Great Sea. Its guardians haunt familiar sights. A dragon, now benevolent, sits atop a fiery mountain. A wise old tree, more folksy than its stoic mustachioed ancestor, stands sentinel in a forest. A great fish lies hidden, half submerged but far from his home. The new sages are also reflections of how things have changed. Inhabitants of the water have now taken flight. The children of the forest grown woody, masked by leaves. While above the waves things have changed, when eventually Link breaks the water's surface, he finds the hero of time's Hyrule. Hyrule stuck in time, a past that cannot be moved on from no matter how far removed from memory. Which feels like a meta-commentary on the legacy of Ocarina of Time, though probably an unintentional one. It is only once the new hero assumes the series' greatest weapon that time, motion, and color return. Here we also learn of the two bridges that connect the past and present, the King of Red Lions and Ganondorf. One seeks to let the past rest, while the other seeks to return it to its former glory. While the king never directly appears in Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf surely does. And the Wind Waker's narrative pulls from Ocarina's version of Ganondorf's character. And while he seems changed, more reflective, his motivations remain similar. He still wishes to lay claim over the land he lost to the Great Flood, a punishment delivered by the normally detached goddesses. It is fitting then that a symbol of the past, King Daphnis must be the one to sacrifice what he once protected, but in doing so allows the ancestors of his land to stake their own claim. In a lot of ways, Wind Waker is a very courageous game. Its bold style choices were almost immediately lampooned. They are a stark contrast to what could be considered the realistic graphics of its 3D predecessors, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Though the cartoony cell shading was criticized for being childish, to me that description is perfect when considering the game as the descendant of the not so far removed and quite frankly looming presence of Ocarina of Time, when the Wind Waker was released in 2003. And the great irony is, in embracing such a unique art style, the Wind Waker has become timeless. Not stuck in time, but outside of it. As a descendant of sorts, it makes sense to be viewed as something not quite as mature. Though this was probably also unintentional and stands in contradiction to the actual themes of the game. But it was also narratively bold in a way a Zelda game hadn't been before. Where games like Link's Awakening and Majora's Mask were bold on their own terms, the Wind Waker embraced its past, paid respectful homage to it, and then kindly said, well, actually, I'm gonna do my own thing. And in doing so, cemented a legacy of its own. It had the guts to say, yes, tradition matters. Yes, deep connections to other games can exist and inform current stories, but they can also move on from these things to create something new. It's a shame that what followed was basically a version of the past Hyrule on steroids, when the series seems spiritually primed for a Breath of the Wild type event. I'm not saying that all the games between these two are not great or that Breath of the Wild is the ultimate expression of Zelda, but that perhaps the series could have branched out into a more interesting territory sooner as a result of the Wind Waker's bold proclamations. I want to leave you with this. The Wind Waker is a game that more than anything is about one word: legacy. Legacy of those who came before you and of your own legacy. And because words are fun, the word legacy is derived from the Latin word legatus, meaning an envoy, an ambassador, or one who goes before. Where legacy is a connection across time, ambassadors are connections across space. The Wind Waker's legacy is one of an ambassador, one that connects sunken Hyrule with the Great Sea, past with present, ancestors, descendants, new players, old heads, grounding you in the familiar while offering you the chance to sail off into the unknown. As always, thanks for watching.